So, Halloween. Halloween is a event in real life where kids or adults go aside for some candy in houses. But one guy named Headless Horseman is taking your heads. So this video gonna be Halloween special. That's Halloween special. It's special because in this video I'm gonna talk about whole story of the Legend of Sleepy Hallow. So grab some popcorn and let's go. The Legend of Sleepy Hallow. Found among the papers of the late Dietrich Knickerbocker. A pleasing land of drowsy head it was, of the dreams that way before the half shall die, and of gay castles in the clouds that pass forever, flashing round a summer sky, castle in the lands. The bosom of one of those spacious coves which indent the eastern shore of the Hudson, at that broad expansion of the river denominated by the ancient Dutch navigators the Tappan Zee, and where they always prettily shorted on sail, and implored the protection of Holy Nicholas. When they crossed it, there lies a small market town or rural port, which by some is called Greensburg, but which is more generally and properly known by the name of Tarrytown. This name was given, we are told, in former days by the good Hawiwidas of the adjacent country from the inverted property city of their husband to linger about the village tavern on market days. Be that as it may, I do not vouch for the fact, but merely advert it, for the sake of being fruitous and authentic. Not far from this village, perhaps about 2 miles, there is a little village or little lap of land among high hills, which is one of the quiet places in the whole world. A small brook glides through it, with just murmur and now to learn one to respond, and the occasional whistle of a quail or tapping of woodpecker is almost the only sound that ever breaks in upon the uniform tranquility. I recollect that when I was reading my first exploit in schoolhouse shooting was in a grove of tall fallen trees that shades on side of the valley. I had wandered into it none time when all nature is peculiarly quiet, and was startled by the roar of my own gun as it broke the sour stillness around, just plundered and reverberated by the angry echoes. If ever I should, if ever I should wish for a retreat, if ever I should wish for a retreat, whatever I might see from the world, and its distraction and dream quest, away the remnant of troubled life, I know of none more promising at this little while from the listless repose of the place in the pizzeria character of its inhabitant or descendant from the original dead settlers. This secular sterile plain was long been under the name of Sleepy Hallow, and its result land are called Sleepy Hallow, or straight throughout all the neighboring country. A drowsy, dreamy influence seems to hang over the land and to pervade the very atmosphere. Some say that the place was bewitched by a high-ground doctor during the early days of the settlement. Others deem an old Indian chief, the prophet of wizard of this tribe, held his bows there before the country was disturbed by Master Hendrik Hudson. Curtain it is. The play still continues, under the sway of some witching power that holds a spell over the minds of the good people, causing them to walk in a continual reverie. They are given to all kinds of marvelous beliefs, or subject to trance and vision and tranquility, see strange scenes and hear some music and voices in the air. The whole neighborhood abounds with local tales, haunted spots and twirling superstition. Stars shoot and meteors glare, often across the valley, then, and any other part of the country, and the nightmare, with her whole ninefold, seems to make it favorite scene of gambles. The dominant spirit, however, that haunts this enchanted region, and seems to be commander-in-chief of all the power of the air, is the apparition of figure horseback without a hat. It is said by some to be the ghost of Asian trooper whose head had carried away by a cannonball in some nameless battle during the Revolutionary War, and who is ever and anon seen by the country folk, hurrying along in the gloom of night, as if on the wings of the wind. His haunts are not confined to the valley, but extended at times to the adjacent roads, especially to the vicinity of a church, and no great distance indeed. Certain of the most authentic historians of those parts who have been careful neglecting the floating facts concern the spectre, alike that the body of the trooper having been buried in a churchyard, the ghost ride forth to the scene of battle nightly quest of his head, and that the rushing feet with which he sometimes passes along the hollow like a midnight blast is owing to his belated and in a hurry to get back to the chariot before daybreak. Such is the general purport of this legendary superstition, which has furnished materials for many a wild story in that region of shadows, and the spectre is known at all the country firesides by the name of the Headless Horseman of Sleepy Hallow. It is remarkable that the visionary prophecy I was mentioned is not confined to the native inhabitant of the valley, but is unconsciously imbibed by everyone who resides there for a time. However, before they enter that sleepy legend, they are sure in a little while to inhale the witching influence of the air and begin to grow imaginative, to dream dreams and see opportunity. I mention this piece's total opposite lot, for it is a set little child that was found here and there impossible in the great state of New York. That population manners and customs remain fixed, while the great torrent of migration improvement, which is making such an incessant in other parts of this restless country, sweeps by them unobserved. They are like those little nooks of this water which border a rapid stream, where we may see the strife at the bubble reading quietly at, unsure or slowly revolving in their mimic, however, undisturbed by the rush of the passing current. Touch many years have elapsed since I trod the drowsy shade of Sleepy Hollow. Yet I question whatever I should not still find the same trees and the same families vegetating in shelters at bosom. In this place of nature there about in a remote period of American history, that is to say, some 30 years since I worked with watch of the name of Ichabod Crane, who sojourned, or has he expressed direct, in Sleepy Hollow for the purpose of instructing the children of the vicinity. He was a native of Consected and states which supplies the Union with pioneers for the mind as well as for the forest, and sends forth yearly its legion of 14 woodsmen and country showmasters, The cognomen of Crane was not inapplicable to his person. He was tall, but exceedingly lank, with narrow shoulders, long arms and legs, hands that dangled a mile out of his sleeves, feet that might have served for showers, and his whole frame most loosely hung together. His head was small and flat at the top, with huge ears, large green glassy eyes, and a long sniped nose, so that it looked like a weathercock perched upon his spindle neck to tell which way the wind blew, to see him striding along the profile of a hill on a windy day, which his closest begging and fluenting about him one might have mistaken him for the genius of famine, desiccation upon the earth, or some scarecrow eloped from a cornfield. His shoe house was a low building of one large room, rudely constructed of logs, the window partly glasses and partly patches with leaves of old copybooks. It was most ingeniously secured and fastened hours by a whistle, twisted in the handle of the door and stakes set against the window shutters, so that should a thief might get in this, and with perfect ease, he should find some embarrassment in getting out. An idea most properly forwarded by the architect Johann from the mystery of an annual poet. The show house stood in a rather lonely but pleasant situation, just at the foot of a woody hill with a brook running close by and a formidable birch tree growing at one end of it, from whence the low murmur of his pupils' voices, conning over the lesson, might be heard in the drowsy summer days, like the hum of a bee hive, interrupted now and then by the outrageous voice of the master, in the tone of menace or comment, or peril to adventure, by the appalling sound of the bird as he urged some dirty loiter along the flowery path of knowledge. True to say, he was a conscientious man, and ever bore in mind the golden maxim, spare the rod and spoil the child. I shabbat Crane, shoulders talently were not spoiled. I would not have it imagined, however, that he was one of those Profetentians of the school who joy in the smart of their subject. On the contrary, he administered justice with discrimination rather than severity, taking the burden off the backs of the weak and laying it on those who the stronger of the strong, your mere puny stripling, and Winston at the least flourish of the road was passed by with intelligence, but the claims of justice were satisfied by inflicting a double portion on some little tot ahead, broad-skirted Dutch urchin who sulked and swelled and grew dogged and solemn beneath the bird, others would he call it, doing his duty by their parents, and he never inflicted a chastisement without following it by the assertions so consolatory to the smarting urchin that he would remember it and thank him for it the longest day he had to live. When Schul's hours were over, he was even the companion and playmate of the larger boys, and on holiday afternoons would convoy some of the smaller ones home who happened to have pretty sisters or good houses for mothers noted for the comfort of cupboard. Indeed, it behoved him to keep on good terms with his pupils. The revenue arising from his school was small, and would have been scarcely satisfied to furnish him with daily bread, for he was huge further in such length that he delayed in parts of an anacodia. But to help out his maintenance, he was, according to country custom in those parts, boarded and lodged at the houses of the farmers whose children he instructed. With these he lived successfully a week at a time, thus going the rounds of the neighborhood with all his worldly effects tied off in a cotton handkerchief, that all this might not be too onerous of his rustic patrons, who are apt to consider the cost of showing a grievous burden on true masters. As merry drones, he had furthest way of rendering himself both useful and agreeable. He assisted the farmers constantly in the wider labors of their farms, helped to make hay, mended the fences, took the horses to water, drove the cows from pasture, and cut wood for the winter fire. He laid aside to all the dominant dignity and absolute sway, with which he lorded in his little empire. The skull and became wonderfully gentle and ingratiating. He found favor in the eye of the mothers by bedding the children particularly the youngest, and like the lion bolt, which whilom so magnanimously the lamb did hold, he would sit with the child on one knee and rock a cradle with his foot for whole hours together. Young folks in psalmody, it was matter of no little vanity to him, on Sundays, to take his station in front of the church gallery with a band of chosen singers who in his almighty completely carried away the palm from the parson, and there are festival choirs still to be heard in that church, and which may even be heard half a mile off, quite to the opposite side of the mill pond. On a still Sunday morning, which are said to be legitimately descended from the ones of Chivot Crane, thus by the divers little makeshifts, in that ingenious way which is commonly denominated by hook and by crook. Fidei Judge got on tolerably and nudged by, and was touched by all who understood nothing of the labor of the headwork, to have a wonderfully easy life of it. The schoolmaster is generally a man of some importance in the family circle of a role in neighborhood, being considered a kind of idle gentleman-like personality of vastly superior taste and accomplishment to the roach country swains, and indeed inferior in learning only to the parson is his appearance, therefore in apt to quotation some little stir at the tea table of a farmhouse, and the addition of supernumerary dish of cakes or sweetmeats, or parade adventure, parade of the parade of a silver tippet, or main of letters, therefore was fatally happy in the smiles of all. The country themselves, how he would figure among them in the churchyard, between services on Sundays, juggling graves for them from the wild, in vines that overrun the surrounding trees, retiring from the amusement, all the Baptist tombstones, or sauntering, which a whole bevy of them along the banks of the adjacent mile bound, while the more bashful country bumpkins sleepishly back in the JVSD. His superior elegance and address from his half degenerate life. Also, he was a kind of traveling gazette, carrying the whole budget of local costs from the house to house, so that his appearance was always greeted with satisfaction. He was moreover esteemed by the women as a man of great erudition, for he had read several books quite throughout and was perfect master of cotton matters, history of New England witchcraft, in which by the way he most firmly and potentially believed. He was in fact an odd mixture of small shrewdness and simple credulity. His appetite for the marvelous, and his power of discussion were equally extraordinary, and both had been increased by his resistance. In this spellbound region, no tale was too gross or monstrous for his capricious swallow. It was often his village after his school was dismissed in the afternoon to stretch himself on the ridgebed of clover, murdering the little brook that whimpered by his schoolhouse in their overall old mother, the ruffled days until the gathering dusk of the evening of the happening made the printed page a mist before his eyes, and as he wended his way by swamp and streamland, waffle Homeland, to the farmhouse where he appointed to quartet every sound of the nature, and it at that witching hour fluttered his exercised imagination, the moan of the whippoorwill. From the hillside the boding cry of the tree-goat, that harbinger of storm, the drearily hooting of the screech wolf, or the sudden rustling in the thickest of bird furtherland, frightened from their roars. A fireplace too, which sparkles most wittily in the darkest place now and then, startled him as one of uncommon brightness would stream across his path, and if by chance a huge blockhead of a Bentley came winking his blundering flash against him, the poor fellow was ready to give up the ghost with the idea that he was struck with a witch token. His only resource on such occasion, either to drown touch or drive away evil spirit, was to sing psalm tunes, and the good people of Sleepy Hollow, as they sat by their doors of an awakening, were often filled with awe at hearing his nasal melody, and Lincoln's witness long drove out, floating from the distant hill or along the dusky road. Another of the sources of feral pleasure was Tuva's long winter happenings. Another of his sources of fearful pleasure was to pass the long winter evenings with the old Dutch waves, as they sat spinning with the fire, with a row of buffaloes roasting and spluttering along the hearth, and listening to their marvelous tales of ghosts and goblins, and haunted fields and haunted brooks and haunted bridges and haunted houses, and fertility of the headless horseman, or gobbling Hessian of the Hollow, as they sometimes called him. He would elicit the quality by his initiation of witchcraft, and of the dreadful omens and portentous sight and sound in the air which powerful in the real times of connected, and would vision them fulfilly with the speculations upon comets and shooting stars, and with the harrowing fact that the world is absolutely turned round, and that they were half the time to see the review. But if there was pleasure in all this, what's snugly cuddling in the chimney corner of a chamber that was all of dreary cloth from the crackling wood fire, and where of course no spectre dared to show his face. It was thoroughly pursued by the terrors of his subsequent walk homewards. What fearful shapes and shadows beset his path amidst the dim and ghastly glare of a snowy night, with what wistful look did he eye every trembling ray of light streaming across the waste fields from some distant window. How often was he appalled by some shrub covered with snow which, like a shattered page, based his very path? How often did he shrink with crowding away from the sound of his own step on the frosty crust beneath his feet, and dread to look over his shoulders, lest he should behold some countenance being tramping close behind him. And how often was he thrown into a complete dismay by some rusting blast hovering among the trees, in the idea that it was the galloping Hessian on one of his nightly caroling. All these, however, were mere terrors of the night, fantasies of the mind that walked in darkness and thought he had seen many spectres in his time, and been more than once visited by shadowy and desert shapes in his lonely perambulation. Yet daylight put an end to all these evils, and he would have passed a pleasant life of it, in despite of the devil and all his works, if his path had not been crossed by a being that caused more perplexity to mortal men than ghosts, goblins, that the whole race of witches put together, and that was a woman. Among the musical displays, Westerns once evening and each week to receive his instructions in psalmody was Katrina Van Tassel, the daughter and only child of substation Dutch farmer. She was a blooming lass of fresh 18, plump as a birthright, ripe and melting in a rosy jacket, as one of her father's peaches and fun and universally farmed morally for her beauty, but her was expression she was a little of a conquered as might be perceived so even in her dress which was a mixture of ancient and moderation, as most suited to set off her charms. She wore the ornaments of pure yellow gold, which her great-great-grandmother had brought over from Saratam, the tempting stomacher of the olden time, and withal a provocative short petticoat to display the prettiest foot and ankle on the country road. I shaved crane had a soft and woolly shirt toward the sex, and it is not to be wondered at that so tempting morsel soon found over in his heart, more especially after he had visited her in her paternal mansion. What Poultice Van Tassel was a perfect picture of driving, contented liberal. Hearted farmer, he seldom, it is true, sent either his eyes or his head beyond the boundaries of his old farm, but within those everything was snug, happy, and well contented. He was satisfied with his food but the style, but not proud of it, and pictured himself over the healthy boundaries rather than the style in which he lived. His stronghold was situated on the banks of the Hudson in one of those green-shouldered furrow nooks in which the Dutch farmers are so fond of nestling. A great holm tree spread its broad branches over it, at the foot of which bubbled up a spring of the softest and sweetest water in a little well formed of a bowl, and then stole spranking away, shot the grass to a neighboring brook that bubbled along among alders and rough willows. Hard by the farmhouse was a vast barn that might have served for a church, every window and crevice of which seemed bursting word with the treasure of the farm. The flay was piously reducing within it from morning to night, swallows and mountains screamed, twittering about the eaves in groves of pigeons. Some with one eye turned up as if watching the water, some with their heads under their wings or buried in their bosoms, and others swelling and coating and bowing about their dams, were enjoying the sunshine of the roof slick and velvety. Porkers were grinding in the and abundance of their pens, when sailed forth now and then troops of sucking pigs, as if to snuff the air, as a stealthy squadron of snowy geese were riding in a unjoining punt, convoying whole fleets of duck, regiment of turkeys were gobbling through the farmyard, and genial fowls fretting about it like ill-tempered housewives, with their previous discontented cry before the barn doors strut the gallant cock that burden of a husband, a warrior, and fine gentleman, clapping his burnished wings and crowing in the pride and gladness of his heart, sometimes stirring up the world with his feet, and then generously calling it his ever-hungry family of wives and children to join the rich mortal which he had discovered. The pedagogy mouth watered as he looked upon this subtuse promise of luxurious winter fare in his devouring minds. He pictured to himself every roasting pig running about with a pudding in his belly and an apple in his mouth. The pigeons were snugly put to the bed in a comfortable pea and tucked in with a coverlet of glass. The geese were swimming in the golden gravy and the ducks sprawling golden dishes like Snack married couples with the distinct complexity of finances. In the focus, he self-carved out the future, sleek side of bacon and juicy red legs in ham, not a turkey, but he felt daintily crested with his grizzard under its wings and varied adventure, a necklace of savory sausage and even fried chandelier. Himself lay sprawling on his back in a side dish, with a private gloves at if craving that quarter, which is chivalrous, very dismayed to ask while living. As it around each avid fancies all this, and as he rolled his great green eyes over the fat native land, the rich fields of wheat, oat, rye, of buckwheat, fat, and Indian corn, and the orchards ferdinand with ruddy fruit, which sorted the warm denouement of one tassel, his heart yearned after the damsel who was to enter Dim's domains, and his imagination expanded with the idea how they might be readily turned into cash, and the money invested in immense tracts of wild land in shingled palaces in the wilderness. Nay, his Bessie fancy already related his hopes and presented to him the bluffing Katrina with a whole family of children mounted on the top of wagon loaded with household tramberry, with pots and candles dangling beneath. He beheld himself bestriding a pissing mare with a colt and her heels setting out of Kentucky, the nest or the Lord knows where. When he entered the house, the conquest of his heart was complete. It was one of those spacious farmhouses with high rigid but lovely sprawling roofs built in the style handed down from the first Dutch settlers, the low projecting eaves forming a piazza, while along the front capable of being closed up in bad weather. Under this were hung flails, harness, various utensils of husbandry, and nets for fishing in the neighboring river benches were building along the side of for summer use, and a great spinning wheel at one end and a churn at the other showed the various uses to which this important porch might be devoted. From this piazza, the wandering eye would enter the hall, which formed the center of the mansion and the place of usual resistance. Here rows of resplendent pathers ranged on a long dresser dulled his eyes. In one corner stood a huge bag of wool, ready to be spun, and another a quantity of linelessly woolsy, just from the loam ears of Indian corn, and strings of dried apples and peaches hung in a gay westerns along the halls, mingled with the gout of red peppers, and the door left ajar gave him a peep into the best parlour, where the cloth-wooded chairs and dark mahogany tables shone like mirrors anti-runs with their attrobing showers, and tongue glistened from their covert of soft porridge tops. Much oranges and conch shell decorated the mantelpiece. Strings of various colored birch eggs were suppressed about it. A great ostrich egg was hanging from the center of the suspicious above it. A great ostrich egg was hanging from the center of the room, and the corner cupboard, conveniently left open, displayed immense treasures of old silver and well-mended china. From the moment Aishabut laid his eyes upon this region of knowledge, the peace of his mind was at an end, and his only study was how to gain the affection of the peerless daughter of Wendezel. On this enterprise, however, he had more real difficulty that generally fell to the lot of a knight-errant of Ori, who seldom at anything but giant enchanters, fairy dragons and such likely is concurred at war Caesars, to contend which and had to make his way more throughout gates of iron and brass and walls of adamant. The castle keep where the lady of his heart was convenient, all which he achieved as easily as a man would carry his way to the center of a Christmas pie, and then the lady gave him her hand, as a matter of course, I shouted and contritely had to win his way to the heart of our country, conquered vested with a labyrinth of whims and caprices, which were forever presenting new difficulties and impediments, and he had to encounter a host of fearful adversities of real flesh and blood. The numerous rustic admirers who beset every fault to her heart, keeping a watching eye and angry eye upon each other, but ready to fly out in the common cause against any new competitor. Among these, the most formidable was broad Rose Terroring, blade of the name of Abraham, or according to the Dutch abbreviation, from one born, the hero of the country round would rank with his food, with his feats of strength and hardihood. He was broad-shouldered and double-jointed, with short, curly black hair and a bluff but no unpleasant consequences, having a mindless air of fun and arrogance. From his herculean frame and the great powers of limb, he has received the nickname of Brom Bones, by which he was universally known. He was famous for great courage and skill in horsemanship, being dexterous on horseback as a Tartar. He was foremost and all races and cockfights, and which the ascendancy with bodily strength always occurred in rustic life, was the upper and all despises, setting his head on the one side and giving his decision with an air and tone adamant of no gainsay or appeal. He was always ready for either a fight or a frolic, but had more meshes than I will in his composition, and with all his overbearing rudeness, with a strong dash of watching good humor at bottom, he had 3 or 4 banana companions who regarded him as their model, and at the head of one he had 3 or 4 banana companions who regarded him as their model, and at the head of whom he scoured the country, attending every stint of food for nourishment for miles around. In cold weather he was distinguished by a fur cap surmounted with a flowing fox tail, and when the folks at a country gathering descried this volcano crest at a distance, whistling about among a squad of hard riders, they always said by for a squad. Sometimes his crew would be heard dashing along past the farmhouses at midnight, with hope and hello, a troop of Donkoskans at the old dames started out of their sleep, listening for a moment till the hoary Scotty, hot clotted by and them exclaimed, "Hey, there goes Brown Bones and his gang!" Neighbors looked upon him with a mixture of wide admiration and declared will and then, and when any madcap prank or rusting brawl occurred in the vicinity, always shook their heads and what Brown Bones was at the bottom of it. The radical hero had for some time singled out the gloomy Katrina for the object of his uncouth color trace. Attached his marvelous toyings were something like the gentle caresses and admirement of a bear, yet his advance were signals for arrival. Candidate who felt no inclusion to cross a line in his amorous insomuch that when his head falling on the sunlight and so sounded his master courting, or it is termed sparking, within all other soldiers passed by in this battle, and carried war into other quarters. Such was the forbidden double which one I Jabot had to control and consider all things a southern man that he would have strong brain had to contend and consider all things a southern man that he would have shrunk from the competition and the wiser man would have despaired. He had Homer a happy mixture of flavor and persimmon. In his nature, he was informed and spirit like a supplejack yielding, but that touch he bent, he never broke, and touch he wove it beneath the slightest pressure. Yet, the moment it was away, jerk, he was as erect and carried his head as high as ever. To have taken the field openly against his rival would have been madness, for he was not a man to be thwarted in his amours any more than that stormy lover a childless Aisha. Therefore made his advance in that stormy lover a childless Aisha, but therefore made his advance a quiet and gently instinctive manner under cover of his character of singing master. He made frequent visits at the farmhouse, not that he had anything to apprehend from the meddlesome advancement of parents, which is so often a stumbling block in the path of lovers. Both one also was uneasy until the soul he loved his daughter better even than his was uneasy until the soul he loved his daughter better even that his wife, and like a reasonable man and an excellent father, let her have her way in everything. His notable little wife too had much to do: attend to her housekeeping, and manage her poultry, for as she safely observed, ducks and geese are foolish things that must be looked after, but girls can take care of themselves. Thus, while the bossy dame bustled about the house or plied her spinning wheel at one end of the pizza, Honest Bart would sit smoking his evening pipe at the other, watching the achievement of a little wooden warrior who armed with a sword in each hand was mercifully fighting the wind on the pinnacle of the barn. In the meantime, Aishavat would carry on his suit with the daughter by the side of the spearing under the great elm, or sattering along the twilight, that hour so variable to the lover eloquent. I proved not to know how women's hearts are wounded and won. They have always been matters of riddle and admiration. Some seem to have but one vulnerable point or door of access, while others have a thousand avenues and may be captured in a thousand different ways. It is a great triumph of skill to gain the former, but a still greater proof of generalship to maintain possession of the latter, for the man must battle for his fortress at every door and window. He one wins a thousand common hearts, and therefore entitled to some renown. But he who keeps undisputed sway over the heart of a courtier is indeed a hero. Certain it is this was not the case with the formidable Brombones, and from the moment Aishavet Crane met his advanced interest of the former evidently decided. His heart was no longer seen tied to the palings on Sunday nights, and a deadly feud gradually arose between him and the protection of Sleepy Hallow. Brom, who had a degree of rude chivalry in his nature, would fain have carried matters to open way and have settled their pretension to the lady according to the mode of those most consistent and simple reasons. The knights redoubt of your by single combat, but Aishavat was too conscious of the superior might of his adversary to run to the less against him. He had overheard a voice of bones that he would double the schoolmaster's up and lay him on a shelf of his own schoolhouse, and he was too worried to give him an opportunity. There was something extremely provoking in his obstinately pacific system. It left from no alternative but to draw upon the fund of rustic vagary in his disposition and to play off boorish practical jokes. Upon his arrival, Aisha became the object of whimsical persecution to Bones and his gang of rowdy riders. They harried his hideout, peaceful domains, smoked out his singing school by stopping up the chimney, broke into the schoolhouse at night in spite of its forbidding fastening of window and window cakes, and turned everything topsy-turvy so that the poor schoolmaster began to think all the witches in the country held their meetings there. But what was still more annoying, Bron took all opportunities of turning him into a dirtical apprentice of his mistress and had a scandal dog whom he taught to whine in the most ridiculous introducing as a rival of Aisha Boots to introduce her in Psalmody. And this way matters went on for some time without producing any material effect on the relative situation of the contending powers. On a fine autumnal afternoon, Aisha Boots, in festive mood, sat athwart on the lofty stool from whence he usually watches all the concerts of his little literary realm. In his hand he waved a ferule that spectre of despotic power. The bird of justice reposed on 3 nails behind the throne, a constant terror to evildoers, while on the desk before him might be seen sundry contraband articles and prohibited weapons, detected upon the person of idle urchins, such as half-manchas, pumpkins, whirligigs, fly cages, and whole legend of rampant little paper game cooks. Apparently, there had been some appalling act of justice recently inflicted for his show loss, were all bestly intent upon their books or slyly whispering behind them, with one eye kept upon the massa, and a kind of bustling stillness resounded throughout the schoolroom, and was suddenly interrupted by the appearance of a negro in tough cloth jacket and trousers, a round grown interrogance of a hat like the cowboy Marzoli, and mounted on the back of a rugged, wild, half-broken colt, which he managed with a rope by way of halter. He came turning up to the school doors with an invitation to Aisha to attend a merry-making or quilting frolic to be held that evening in Mitre Van Dessel, and having delivered his message with that air of importance and effort at fine language which a negro is apt to display on petty emphasis of the kind, he dashed over the brook and was seen scumbering away up the hollow, full of the importance and hurry of his mission. All was now bustle and hubbub in the late, quiet schoolroom. The scholars were hurried through their lessons without stopping at trifles. Those who were skipped over half at infinity, and those who were tardy had a smart application now and then, in the rear, to quicken their speed or help them over a tall word. Books were flowing outside without being put away on the shelves. Instead were overturned benches thrown down, and the whole school was turned loose an hour before the usual time, bursting forth like a legion of young imps, yelping and rugging about the green in joy at their ill-appointed station. The gallant Aisha would now spend at least an extra half hour at his toilet, brushing and worshipping up his best and indeed only suit of rusty black, and hurrying his locks by a bit of broken-looking glass that hung up in the schoolhouse, that he might make his appearance before his mistress in the true style of a cavalier. He borrowed a horse from the farmer with whom he was domiciliated, a heroic old Dutchman of the name of Hans Heaven Reaper, and thus, gallantly mounted, issued forth like a knight errant in quest of the adventurous. But it is made I should, in the true spirit of romantic story, give some account of the looks and equipment of my hero and his stead. The animal he destroyed was a broken down village horse that had outlived almost everything but his features. He was a gaunt and shaggy with a heavy neck and a head like a hammer. His rusty mane and tail were tangled and dotted with pores. One eye had lost its pupils and was glaring and spectral, but the others had a gleam of a genius devil in it. Still he must have had a fire and metal in his day, if we may judge from the name he bore of gunpowder. He had in fact been a favorite steed of his master, the choleric Van Ripper, who was a various raider and had infused very powerfully some of his own spirit into the animal, for old and broken down as he looked, there was more of the learning devil in him than any young filly in the country. Aisha was a suitable figure for such a steed. He rode with short stirrups, which brought his knees nearly up to the pommel of a sandal. His sharp elbows stuck out like grasshoppers. He carried his whip perceptibly in his hand like a spectre, and as his horse jerked on the motion of his arms was not unlike the flapping of a pair of wings. A small wool had rested on the top of his nose, for saw his scantily stripped forehead, much becolored, and the skirts of his black coat floated out almost to the horse tail. Such was the appearance of Aishawat and his steed as they shone out of the gate of Hans Van Ripper, and his was altogether such an apparition as it seldom to be met with in broad daylight. It was, as I have said, a fine autumnal day. The sky was clear and serene, and nature wore that rich and golden revelry which he always associated with the idea of abundance. The forest at foot, under cypress, brown and yellow, while some trees of the tendered kind had been nipped by the frost into brilliant days of orange, purple and scarlet. Swimming flights of wild ducks began to make their appearance high in the air. The bark of the squirrel might be heard from the groves of beech and acorn nuts, and the pensive whistle of the cloud dwells from the neighboring stubble wild. The small birds were taking their furrow bangs. In the fullness of their revelry they fluttered, chirping and frogging from the bush to bush, and tree to tree, coupling from the very provision and variety around them. There was the hotness cock-robin, and the favorite game of spring sportsmen, with its loud chorus note, and the twittering blackbirds flying in sable clouds, and the golden-winged with his crimson crest, his broad black coathead and blending plumage, and the turtle bird with its red tips wing and yellow tip tail, and his little Montero cap of withers, and the blue jay, that noisy cock's comb, in his gay light blue coat and white other clothes, screaming and chattering, noting and bowing and pretending to be on good terms with every songster of the grove. As Aichabad jogged slowly on his way, his eye ever open to every symptom of culturally abundance, ranged with delight over the treasures of jolly autumn. On all sides he beheld was store of applesome hanging in oppressively abundance in the trees, some gathered into baskets and barrels for the market, others heaped up in rich piles for the settled breast. Farther on he beheld great fields of Indian corn, with its golden ears peeping from their leafy covers and holding out the promise of cake and hasty pudding, and the yellow pumpkins lying beneath them, turning up their far round bellies to the sun, and giving ample prospects of the most luxurious of pies. And anon he passed the fragrant backward fields, breathing the odor of the beehive, and as he beheld them self contemplation stole over his mind of tiny slapjacks, were puffled, wall-puttered, and garnished with honey or treacle by the diluted little dimpled hand of Katrina Van Dassel, thus feeding his mind with many sweet thoughts and cigarettes sufficient. He journeyed along the sides of a range of hills, which look out upon some of the godless scenes of the mighty Hudson. The sun gradually filled his broad disk down into the west. The wide bosom of the deepened sea lay, motionless and glassy, expecting that here and there a gentle angular waved and prolonged in the blue shadow of the distant mountain. A few amber clouds floated in the sky, without a breath of air to move them. The horizon was of a fine golden tint, shining gradually into a pure upper green, and from that into the deep blue of the mid-haven. A sliding rail withered on the woody crest of the precipice that overhung some part of the river, giving greater depths into the dark grey and purple of the rocky sides. A sloop was loading in the distance, dropping slowly down with the tide, her sail hanging uselessly against the mast, and as the reflection of the sky gleamed along the still water, it seemed as if it was suspicious in the air. It was toward evening that I should arrive at the castle of the Herr von Tessel, which he found thronged with the pride and flower of the enchanted country. Old farmers of spare-letter faces raised in homespun coats and breeches, blue stocking gold, huge shoes, magnificent drifter bunkers, their brisk withered little dames, and close-scribbled caps. Long-waisted short gowns, homespun petticoats with scissors and pinchusons, and gay calico pockets hanging on the outside buxom laces, almost as antiquated as their mother's expansion, were as Truff had a fine ribbon or perhaps a white frock, gave symptoms of the city invasion. The sons in the short, square-skirted coats, with rows of stupendous brass buttons and their hair generally keen in the fashion of the times, especially if they recalled pretty skin from the purpose, and bang as a tender drove out the country as potent narrations in strong tedder. Her brown arms all was the cure seen come to the gathering on his face, did there a creature like himself, full of modern mischief, and which no one but himself could match. He was, in fact, noted for preferring witches, animals, given to all kinds of tricks which kept the rider in conscious risk of his neck, for he felt a tractable, all-broken horse at effrontery of a lad of spirit. Fain would I pause to dwell upon the words of charms that burst up the unrupted guest of my hero as he entered the stage platform of one Tessel mansion. Not those of the bevy of buxom laces with their luxurious display of red and white, but the apple charms of a genuine Dutch country tea table. In the subtitious time of autumn, such heaped up platters of cakes of various and almost intercalable kinds, not only to Dutch housewives. There was the touchy nut, the tenderest oily cow cake, and the crisp and crumbling cruller, sweet cakes and short cakes, finger cakes and honey cakes, and the whole family of cakes, and the And then there were apple pies and peach pies and pumpkin pies, besides slices of ham and smoked beef, and moreover delectable dishes of preserves, plums and peaches and pears and quinines, not to mention broiled shad and roasted chickens, together with bowls of milk and cream. All my haglety piglety, pretty much as I have interrupted them with that military teapot, sending up its cloud of vapor from the midst. Heaven bless the mark, I want brief on time to discuss this banquet as it deserves, and I'm too eager to get on with my story. Hopefully, Aisha the Crane was not in so great a hurry and his historian, as his historian, but did ample justice to every dainty. He was a kind and thankful creature who served delighted in proportion as his skin was filled with good cheer, and whose spirits rose with eating. As some men's do with drink, he could not help to rolling his large eyes around him as he ate and chuckling at the possibility that he might one day be lord of all this thing of almost unmixable and of almost unimaginable luxury and splendor. Then he thought how soon he'd turn his back upon the old schoolhouse, snap his finger in the face of Hans Van Ripper and every other neglected patron, and kick any insolent pedagogue out of doors that should dare to call him comrade. Old Potus one day moved among his rest with a face related with comfort and good humor, one enjoying as the harvest moon. His hospitable attention was brief but expressive, with fluttering shake of the hands, a slap on the shoulder, a loud, and a pressing individual to fall to and help themselves. Fall to and help themselves. And now the sound of the music from the common room or hall summoned to dance the room. The musician was an old grey-headed negro who, in the interrupted orchestra of the neighborhood, of a century, his instrument was as old and buttered as himself. The greater part of the time he scrubbed on 2 or 3 strings, accompanying every movement of the bow with a motion of the head revolving almost to the ground and stamping with his foot whenever a fresh couple were to start. I shoved prided himself upon his dance as much as upon his focus pose, and if you were about him was only to have seen his nose hang frame in full motion and cloring about the room, you would have thought Saint Vitus himself, that blessed patron of the dance, was figuring before you in person. He was the admiration of all the negroes who, having gathered of all ages of exiles from the farm and the neighborhood, stood forming a parliament of shining black faces at every door and window, gazing with daylight at the scene, rolling their white eye balls and showing grinning rows of ivory from ear to ear. How could the flogger of urchins be otherwise than animated and joyous? The lady of his heart was his partner in the dance, and smiling gratuitously in reply to all his amorous influence. Like warm bones, so it is permitted to love and jealousy, sat brooding by himself in one corner. When the dance was at an end, Bashar was attracted to a note of the sacred voice, who with all one's blazer sat smoking and the piazza, co-sobbing over former times, and drawing out long stories about the world. This neighborhood at the time of which I am speaking was one of those high favorite places which abound with rivalry. The satisfied time had elapsed to enable each storyteller to dress up himself with a little becoming fiction, and in the distinction of his recollection to make himself the hero of every exploit. There was the story of David Morting, a large blue-bearded Dutchman who had nearly taken a British frigate with an old iron 9 powder from a mud-bread work, only that his gun burst at the 6 days church, and there was an old gentleman who shall be nameless, paying to reach a miner to be lightly mentioned, who in the Battle of Wine Plains, being an excellent master of defense, parried a musket ball with a small sword, in so much that he absolutely failed it with round the blade against off at the hilt, in proof of which he was ready at any time to show the sword with the hilt a little bent. There were several more that had been equally great in the field, not one of whom but was persuaded that he had a considerable hand in bringing the war to a happy termination. But all these were nothing to the tales of ghosts and apparition that succeeded. The neighborhood is rich in legendary treasures of kind, local taste and superstition, thrive best in these sheltered long statelet retreats, but are trampled underfoot by the shifting troves that form the population of most of our country places. Besides, there is no end to the for ghosts most of our villages, for they have scarcely had time to finish their first nap and turn themselves in their graves before their surviving friends have traveled away from the neighborhood, so that when turn out a night to walk the rounds, they have no acquaintance left to call upon. This is perhaps the reason why we so seldom hear of ghost experts and seldom hear of ghost expect in our long established Dutch communities. The immediate cause, however, of the prevalence of supernatural stories in this part was double deaths. Owing to the vicinity of Sleepy Hollow, there was a conviction in the very air that blew from that haunted region. It breathed forth an atmosphere of dreams and faces. Infecting all the land, several of the Sleepy Hollow people were present at Van Testel, and as usual were telling our wild and wonderful legends. Many dismal tales were told about funeral trains and mourning cries and wailing, heard and seen about the great tree where the unfortunate Mayor Andre was taken, which stood in the neighborhood. Some mention was made also of the women in white that haunted the dark glen at Raven Rock, and was often heard to shriek on winter night before a storm, having perished there in the snow. The chief part of the stories, however, turned upon the favorite spectre of Sleepy Hollow, the Headless Horseman, who had been here several times of late patrolling the country. It was said that his horse nightly among the graves and the troll. The secondary situation of this troll seems always to have been the favorite haunt of trumpet spirits, standing on the moon, surrounded by locust trees and lovely elves, on which its descent by worship was shining mournfully forth like preaching beauty, beaming through the shades of woodland, leaping gentle slope to stand from its to a silver sheet of water, bordered by high trees between which beasts may be couched at the below post of the hudson, to look upon its grass-grown ground, or to sing where the sunbeams seemed to sleep so quietly. one would think that there at least his dead might rest in peace on one side. The church extended a wide woody dell along which rivers, a large brook among broken rocks at the trunks of fallen trees over a deep black part of the stream. Not far from the church was formerly thrown a wooden bridge. The road that led to it and the bridge itself were thickly shaded by overhanging trees, which cast a gloom out it even in the daytime, but occasioned a fearful darkness at night. This was one of the favorite haunts of the Headless Horseman, and the place where he was most frequently encountered. The tale was told of old brother, a most heretical disbeliever in ghosts, how he met the horseman returning from his further into Sleepy Hollow and was objected to get up behind him, how they galloped over bush and brake, over hill and swamp until they reached the bridge, when the horseman suddenly turned into a skeleton, threw old brother into the brook and sprang away over the treetops with a clap of thunder. This history was immediately matched by a tree's Merrill's adventure of Brown Bones, who made light of the galloping Hessian as an errant jockey. He affirmed that on returning one night from the neighboring village of Sing Sing, he had been overtaken by this midnight shopper, that he had offered to race with him for a bowl of punch and should have won it too, for Daredevil beat the goblin horde all hello, but just as they came to the charred ridge, the Hessian bolted and vanished in a flash of fire. All these tales told in that drowsy undertone which meant talking. The countenance of the listeners only now and then received a casual gleam from the glare of a pipe sank deep in the mind of Aisha, but he repeated them in kind with large extracts from his invaluable outer cotton mother, and added many marvelous events that had taken place in his native states of Connecticut, and fearful signs which he had seen in his nightly walks about Sleepy Hallow. The revel now gradually broke up. The old farmers gathered together their families in their wagons and were heard for some time rattling along the hollow roads and over the distant hills. Some of the daimons mounted on pylons behind their favorite swains, and their light-haired laughter, mingling with the clatter of hoofs, echoed along the silent woodlands, sounding fader and fader, until they gradually died away, and the late scene of noise and frolic was all silent and deserted. I should only linger behind according to the custom of country lovers, to fade TAT with their heroes, fully convinced that he was now on the high road to success. What passed at this interview, I will not pretend to say, for in fact I did not know something over. I fear me must have become wrong, for he turned his solid forth after a long and very good interval, with an air of quiet failure of these women. These women! Could that girl have been playing off any of her cowardice tricks? Was her inquirement of the poor pedagogue all a meerschaum secure her conquest of his breath? Having any knows not I, let it suicide to say, I shall extol for one who had been sick and rose rather than a fair lady heard, without looking to the right or left, to noises. The stain of willow wood on which he had so often gloated, he went straight to the stable, and with several hearty calves and cakes rose at his steed most uncrossly from the comfort rock quarters in which he was, sang the sleeping drink of mountains of corn and oats, and whole walls of timothy and clover. It was the very reaching time of night that I should heavy burden, and Louis fell in pursuit straight homeward alongside of the lofty hills which rise in the stark town which he had traversed so cheerfully. In the afternoon, the hour was as dismal as himself. Far below him, the Tafen Sea spread its dusky and instinct wave of waters with her and there the tall mast of a sloop riding gravely in the dead light of night could even hear the barking of the water from the opposite shore of the Hudson, but it was so sluggish and faint as only to give an idea of its distance from which faithful company of men now and then two long and called accidentally awakened. Would sound far forward from the same farmhouse way among the hills, but it was like a gloomy sound in his ear. No sign of life occurred near him, but auxiliary and melancholy chirp of a cricket, or perhaps the usual time of a bullfrog from a neighboring marsh, as he was looking and calmly all the stories of ghosts and goblins that he heard in the afternoon now came crowding upon his recollection. The night grew darker and darker. The stars seemed to sink deeper in the sky, and driving clouds actually occasionally hid them from his sight. He had never felt so lonely and dismal. He was, moreover, approaching the very place where many of the scenes of the ghost stories had been laid. In the center of the road stood an enormous tulip tree, which towered like a giant above all the other trees of neighborhood, and formed of a kind of landmark. Its limbs were gnarled and fantastic, large enough to form trunks for ordinary trees, twisting down almost to the earth and rising again into the air. It was connected with the tragical story of the unfortunate Andrew, who had been taken prisoner hard by and was universally known by the name of Major Andrew Tree. The common people regarded it with a mixture of respect and superstition, partly out of sympathy for the fate of its ill-starred namesake, and partly from the tales of strange signs and doleful lamentation told concerning it. As a child approaching this fearful tree, he began to whistle. He thought his whistle was unferreted, was but a blast sweeping sharply through the dry branches. As he approached a little nearer, he thought he saw something white hanging in the midst of the tree. He paused and gazed it, whistling, but on looking more narrowly, perceiving that it was a place where the tree had been scattered by lightning, and the white wood laid bare. Suddenly he heard a groan. His teeth chattered and his knees smote against the settle. It was but the rapping of one huge boat upon another as they were swayed about by the breeze. He passed the tree in safety, but new perils lay before him. About 200 yards from the tree, a small brook crossed the road and ran into a marshy and tiltly wooden glen, known by the name of Willy Swamp. A few round logs laid side by side served for a bridge over the stream. On the side of the road where the brook entered the wood, a group of oaks and chestnuts made a thick with old graves vines, threw a cardinal's gloom over it. To pass this bridge was the Severus Trail. It was at this in the decal spot that the unfortunately Andrew was captured and under the cover of those shit nuts and winners were the sturdy Weem and Vines were the sturdy Yeoman conclusions who surprised him. This was ever since been considered a haunted stream and fearful are the feelings of the schoolboy who has to pass it alone after dark. As he approached the stream, his heart began to stamp. He summoned up. However, all his resolution gave his horse half a score of kicks in the ribs and attempted to dash briskly across the bridge. But instead of starting forward, the breathless old animal made a lateral movement and ran broadside against the fence. I shoved whose fears increased with the detail, jerked the reins on the other side and kicked loosely with the contrary foot. It was all in vain. His teeth started at his shoe, but it was only to plunge to the opposite side of the road into a thicket of brambles and alder bushes. The schoolmaster now bestowed both whip and hail upon the struggling ribs of old Gunpowder, who dashed forward, snuffing and snorting, but came to a stand just by the bridge with a suddenness that had nearly sent his rider sprawling over his head. By just at this moment, a plushy tramp by the side of the bridge caught the sensitive ear of Aishabat in the dark shadow of the grove on the margin of the brook. He beheld something. Huge misshapen, black and towering. It stirred not but seemed gathering upon in the gloom like some gigantic monster ready to spring upon the traveller. The hair of the affrighted pedagogue rose upon his head with terror. What was to be done? To turn and fly was now too late, and besides, what chance was there of escaping ghost or goblin, if such it was, which could ride upon the wings of the wind? Summoning up therefore a show of courage, he demanded in stammering accent, "Who are you?" He received no reply. He repeated his demand in a still more accurate voice. Still there was no answer. Once more he jattled the sides of the inflexible Gunpowder, and shutting his eyes, broke forth with involuntarily fervor into a pleasant tune. Just then the shadowy object of alarm put itself in motion, and with a scramble and a bound stood at once in the middle of the road. Touch the night was dark and dismal, yet the form of day, and no much now in some degree be as coordinate, in some degree be as coordinated. He appeared to be a horseman of large dimension mounted on a black horse of powerful frame. He made no offer of molestation or such civility, but kept aloof on one side of the road, jogging along on the blind side of old Gunpowder, who had now got over his fright and weariness. A shepherd who had no relish for the strange midnight companion, and bethought himself of the adventure of Brombones with the galloping Hessian, now quadrined his steed in hopes of leaving him behind. The stranger, however, quickened his horse to an equal pace. A shepherd pulled it up and fell into a walk, taking to lag behind. The other did the same. His heart began to sink within him. He interfered to resume his psalm tune, but his parted tongue clove to the roof of his mouth, and he could not utter the way. Stave, there was something in the moody and dogged silence of this person's companion that was mysterious and appalling. It was soon fearfully accounted for on mounting or rising ground, which brought the figure of his fellow traveler reveal against the sky, gigantic in height and muffled in a cloak. I showed was horror struck, on perceiving that he was headless, but his horror was still more increased on observing that the head, which should have rested on his shoulders, was carried before him on the pommel of his saddle. His terror rose to desperation. He rained a shower of kicks and blows upon gunpowder, upon by a sudden movement to give his companion the slip, but the spectre started a full jump with him. Away! Then they dashed through thick and thin stones, flying and sparks flashing at every bound. A shabbat flimsy garment fluttered in the air as he stretched his long body away over his horse's head in the increase of his flight. They had now reached the road which turns off to Sleepy Hollow. But gunpowder, who seemed possessed with a demon, instead of keeping up it, made an opposite turn and plunged headlong downhill to their left. This road leads through a sandy hollow, shaded by trees for about a quarter of a mile, where it crossed the bridge, famous in Goblin story, and just beyond Smells, the green canal on which stands the white-washed church. As yet, the panic of the steed had given his unskillful rider an apparent advantage in the chase, but just as he had got halfway through this hollow, the gears of the saddle gave away and he felt it slipping from under him. He seized it by the pommel and endeavored to hold it firm, but in vain, and had just time to save himself by collapsing on gunpowder round the neck when the saddle fell to the earth and he heard it tremble under foot by his pursuer. For a moment the terror of hands one wrath passed across his mind, for it was his Sunday saddle, but this was no time for petty fears. The goblin was hard in his haunches and unskillful rider, that he had much ado to maintain his seat, sometimes slipping on one side, sometimes on another, and sometimes trotted on the high ridge of his horse's backbone on another, and sometimes trotted on the high ridge of his horse's backbone. They are violence that he verily feared would cleave his ancestor, and opening in the trees now cheered him with the hopes that the charge which was at hand. The very reflection of a silver star in the bosom of the brook told him that he was not mistaken. He saw the walls of the church dimly glowing under the trees beyond. He recollected the place where Brombone's ghostly competitor had disappeared. If I can reach that bridge, thought I should, I am safe. Just then he heard the black steed panting and blowing close behind him. He even fancied that he felt his hot breath under convulsive kick, ribs, and all the gunpowder sprang upon the bridge. He thundered over the resounding planks. He gained the opposite side, and now I should cast a look behind to see if his pursuer should vanish according to rule in a flash of fire and brimstone. Just then he saw the goblin rising in his stirrups, and in the very act of hurling his head at him. I shouted and forward to dodge the horrible missile, but too late. It encountered his cranium with a tremendous crash. He was tumbled headlong into the dust and gunpowder. The black steed and the goblin rider passed by like a whirlwind. The next morning the old horse was found without his saddle, and with the bridle under his feet, suppressing the groping grass at his master's gate. Shabbat did not make his appearance at breakfast. Dinner hour came, but no Shabbat. The boys assembled at the schoolhouse, and stored idly about the banks of the brook, but no schoolmaster, Hans Van Ripper, now began to feel some unwitting about the fate of poor Aishabud, and his saddle and inquiry was set on foot, and after a delicate investigation, they came upon his trace. In one part of the road leading to the church was found the central trumpet in the dirt, the tracks of horses, hoes deeply dented in the road and eventually at 40 speed were traced to the bridge beyond which on the bank of a broad part of the brook, where the water ran deep and black, was found the head of the unfortunate Shabbat, and close beside it a shattered pumpkin. The brook was searched, but the body of the schoolmaster was not to be discovered. Hence, one Ripper, as executioner of his estate, examined the bundle which contained all his worldly effects. They consisted of 2 shirts and a half 2 stacks for the neck, a pair or 2 of wards stocking and par, an old pair of country small clothes, a rusty razor, a book of psalm tunes full of ducks, hares, and a broken pitch pipe. As to the books and furniture of the Shulm house, they belonged to the community expecting cotton matter history of witchcraft, a New England almanac, and a book of dreams and fortune telling, in which last was a sheet of wool's cap, much crumpled and bloated in several fruitless. Upon attempts to make a copy of verses in honor of the heroes of Van Tassel, these magic book and the poetic scroll were forthwith consigned to the flames by Hans Van Ripper, who from that time forward determined to send his children no more to school, observing that he never knew any good come of the same reading and writing. Whatever money the schoolmaster possessed, and he had received his quarter to pay, but a day or 2 before he must have had about his person at the time of his disappearance. The mysterious event caused much speculation at the church on the following Sunday. Knots of gazer and gossips were collected in the churchyard, at the bridge, and at the spot where the hat and pumpkin had been found. The stories of Brewer of Bones and a whole budget of others were called to mind, and when they had diligently considered them all and compared them with the symptoms of the present case, they shook their heads and came to the conclusion that I should had been carried off by the galloping Hessian, as he was a bachelor and nobody depth. Nobody troubled his head any more about him. The show was removed to a different quarter of the hollow, and another pedagogue rehired in his stead. It is true an old farmer who had been down to New York on a visit several years after, and from whom this account of the ghostly adventure was received brought home the intelligence that Ashwood was still alive, that he had left the neighborhood, partly through fear of the goblin and Hans Van Ripper, and partly in mortification at having been suddenly dismissed by the heiress, that he had changed his quarantines to a distant part of the country, had kept school and studied aloft at the same time, had been optimised to the bar, turned political electioneered Friday for the newspaper, and finally been made justice for the of the £10 card. Brown Bones, too, who shortly after his rival disappearance continued the blowing Katrina and trumped the altar, was observed to look extremely knowing whenever the story of Rachel was relative, and always bursts into A healthy laugh at the mention of the pumpkin, which led some to suspect that he knew more about the matter that he chose to tell. The old country wife is however who wrote the best judges of the matter's maintain to this day that Aisha was spirited away by supernatural means, and it is a favorite story often told about the neighborhood around the winter evening fire. The bridge became more than ever an object of superstitious wave, and that may be the reason why the road has been alternate of late years, so as to approach the church. By the borders of the millband, the schoolhouse being deserted soon fell to decay and was reported to be haunted by the ghost of the unfurnished peasant and the blowed boy. Loitering homeward of a still summer evening as often faced his voice at a distance, shouting a melancholy psalm tune among the tranquil solstice to Sleepy Hallow. Thank you guys for watching. So, this is a story of Sleepy Hallow. Bye.